Hello, in this video you'll see how you can better log your models basically, or anything to do with classes or records in C#, .NET 9 or even previous versions as well. Now, this isn't necessarily about logging, this is sort of expanding on the ToString override. You can watch other videos on how you can do that exclusively without all this stuff for the record and for the class as well. Somewhat different, but somewhat the same as well. But it is very useful for logging. Now, sometimes you just want to get all the data possible for logging your problems and exceptions and things like that, and you want to just get everything from that class that you can get. Of course, there is a notice that needs to be added to that. You probably should avoid logging passwords and things of that nature, basically all the sensitive information, but generally this is kind of what you want to do, but writing them one by one is not very convenient. Often it's quite tedious and quite annoying, and you might also miss a thing if you need to log all the properties of a class that go into things or everything that's sort of pushed through a record. You need to log everything. You might actually miss something because you need to go one by one, but there is actually an easier way. Now, in this case, we have a person, and person, in this case, you will see both examples of class and record. It's more or less similar, at least in the way that you actually use it. It's very similar. But in this case, we have a first name, we have a last name, and we have the date of birth. And as you can see, the output is exactly the property, the variable, the parameter, whatever you want to call it. We have first name, then the actual value, then the last name, then the actual value. This is coming from a class. You will see later on from the record it's a bit different. We don't have the underscore here, but essentially you get the actual parameter name or property name plus the value that it actually holds. And we get all that from ToString method. So the way it works, it's relatively simple. Right here we have a person class. We have some private properties. You could have public as well. It doesn't really matter in this case. And then we also construct it, so we pass through everything, we set them, all good and great. Obviously these are private, so you'll need to set them, or you'll need to set them from inside somehow. That's kind of how it goes. It doesn't matter at all. But then we use public override string ToString. Specifically ToString. So we override ToString method to get that string value. When we use ToString, we will get something. In this case, what we are getting actually is all the details that are sort of set up in this class, all the private properties. Now, to do that, we use, of course, the string join to join all the variables together. But the more important thing here is we get type. So we get type, and then we get fields right here. We get fields. Fields take BindingFlags rather, all the attributes associated to everything. And in this case, we're getting non-public. So we get from the instance, we get non-public. But if you had public, you could also do public. So those options are available. Essentially what we are trying to do, we are trying to get all the properties. We are trying to get the name of the properties and then the actual value of the property. So we don't need to bother with every property, we just get the actual final result. Of course, in this case, we only have 3 fields. Okay, that may be relatively easy to do it manually, and perhaps it would be even better to do it manually, because you can write up additional descriptions for each one of those properties. But realistically, sometimes you can have 10 or maybe even 20 members in a class or in that model that you're using for inserting user details or things of that nature. So it would be very useful to just have them all, and this is how you can get them all. So essentially you get the type, you get the fields, then to get the type you get this person type essentially, and then you get all the private or rather non-public in this case arrangements. So you can get non-public, you can get public, or you can get all of them as well and join them together. So any sort of properties. Now usually it will probably be either just public or just private, depending on whatever you're actually accessing in that particular case, but you have both options there. And then after that we just use select, which will select from all those properties the name and the value of it. So it will go through, in this case it will go through each one of these like that. It will go through first name, so it will get underscore first name. Then right here it will get the actual value assigned, whatever name it is assigned, and then it will go to last name and it will do the same exact thing. And then finally, the way you use it, very simple. You just use ToString, and that will get you your string result with all those values intact. And again, this is mostly very useful for logging. You can probably find other use cases, but for logging, if you can't be bothered to go any further, or rather if you don't have any resources to sort of do a full proper logging, all you can spend time on is sort of avoiding those sensitive areas. You can just log everything and everything will be available, and then once you kind of go to the other stages, the next stages of development, you can clean up the logs and do it manually, but this can actually save you quite a bit of time. Now, going over to the record type, which is sort of very similar, but I would say it is actually more straightforward. Of course, in record, we just have all the values as parameters in that sort of way, at least. So again, we use the same join, but in this case we get type, just like we did previously, but we don't need to bother with binding flags or anything like that, whether it's public or non-public or protected or whatever it is. We just get all the properties, and then we loop through the properties. We get name, just like we did previously with a class, and then we get the value. Now, all this source code is available on Patreon. Do go out there, do check it out. There are some free courses available if you subscribe for a very little price. The course value is quite a bit higher than the subscription, monthly subscription fee, so do check that out. And with that said, we will conclude this video.